What's going on, my friends on Facebook? What's going on, my friends on YouTube? I appreciate y'all so much. I want to talk about today the breaking news: Biden's OSHA mandates, vaccine mandates that we're going to cover 80 million workers have been shut down in the Supreme Court. Sort of. There's a little caveat, I guess, if you receive Medicare and Medicaid. We'll talk about that. So there is a little caveat that I'm personally not that pumped about, but this is great news. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I think we take 10 steps in the wrong direction, like a few steps in the right direction, but, definitely a good ruling, definitely much better than them ruling in the other way. So Biden's OSHA mandates that we're going to cover 80 million workers have been shut down by the Supreme Court. I believe the decision was 3 liberals dissented, and I guess 6 in favor. Let's talk about it. That's the story of the day. And then we're going to react to some Joe Biden clips, or as I like to call him, slow Biden. He's not the quickest guy, and there's nothing wrong with that because, one of my favorite stories when I was younger was the turtle, versus the hare. The hare was fast, but the turtle was determined. He slowly just crawled his way to the finish line. So I like to call President Joe Biden slow Biden because he's not the quickest turtle in the race. But, if he keeps crawling along with the help of the mainstream media, if he keeps crawling along with the help of our unelected bureaucrats and the health experts, maybe he'll get somewhere. Maybe he could be president. Oh, he is president. Okay, maybe you could be president someday. If he could be president, you could be president. I think before we start, I think Trump showed people like, anybody could be president. It's not that Trump's like anybody, but it's like, oh, he's not a politician. He was on The Apprentice. He was in WWE. He's like this businessman that everybody thought was cool. Everyone was like, if Trump could be president, like people started getting inspired. They're like, oh man, I could run for governor. I could run for Senate. A lot of MAGA people are like, I'm going to run for my local office. Trump started inspiring people like, if he can run, we can run. And then Biden won. And now it's like, literally anybody can run for office. Like Gavin Newsom, he's not the most likable character. He's like, if Biden can win, I could win. Like everybody on the planet's like, if that guy could be president, like literally anyone. So Trump started the movement of like, oh, normal people, people that aren't like clean cut can run for office. You don't have to be like a stiff, fake politician. And then Biden gets in office and you're like, oh, literally anybody can run. Like literally, you don't even need to be like fully functional in order to be the president. In a weird way, it's kind of inspiring, but it's also kind of embarrassing. But we got clips of him and Kamala Harris we'll listen to. All right, let's get into the story. Thank you guys for joining. And real quick, I just want to let y'all know the songs in the bio and stuff. Today's the last day, but it looks like we're going to be on a few Billboard charts. So I'll let y'all know. Thank you guys so much for your help. Because of your support and your love and you guys supporting on music sites and stuff, we're probably going to hit a couple Billboard charts, which is exciting because we're competing with like multi-billion-dollar industries in some cases with million-dollar budgets. So me and Bryson did it. Thank you for your help. We'll let you know tomorrow what place we got. But the story of the day, this is I'm going to read Bloomberg. I don't know. This isn't a lot of mainstream news, but I just picked one that seemed pretty easy and clear cut. Bloomberg headline: Supreme Court halts vaccine mandate that will cover 80 million workers. A divided U.S. Supreme Court blocked the centerpiece of President Joe Biden's push to get more people vaccinated amid a COVID-19 surge, rejecting an Occupational Safety and Health Administration OSHA rule that would have required 80 million workers to get shots or periodic tests. The court let a separate rule take effect requiring shots for workers in nursing homes, hospitals, and other facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid payments from the federal government. So here's the caveat. I guess the Supreme Court, which I personally don't like, I'm not really pumped about this, they're allowing a separate rule to take place that they can require vaccination for workers in nursing homes, hospitals, and other facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid payments from the federal government. See, I don't like that. I'm grateful that they blocked it down, but it's like, here's what the government does. It grows, right? They're constantly sucking out your money. Oh, you should stay home. 100,000 restaurants destroyed. You should stay home. Millions of people kicked out of work. The government grows bigger. The government grows fatter. Big pharma grows fatter. And as they grow fatter, then they're like, well, if you work for us or you take our money, then we could still enforce it. It's like at a certain point, we're not going to have an option because you guys are swallowing up the whole country, you and your crony, pharma friends. But anyway, I don't like that rule. But let's get back to the positive note. The ruling on OSHA's limits Biden's options for increasing the country's vaccination rate as Omicron. They're always trying to like spin it with this angle. Shut up. But anyway, Bloomberg said the U.S. CDC. I don't want to hear this. I want to hear what actually happened. This is why I can't read mainstream media. Bloomberg is like trying to frame it so hard. They're like, I mean, he's trying to get people vaccinated. Yeah, against their will. Everybody that wants to get vaccinated to this point got vaccinated. Like everybody knows. Ronald McDonald, Big Bird, Big Bird's like, hey, kid, like everybody knows. You can't turn on a television station without hearing about it. Freaking Charles Barkley talking about, everybody knows, you can't even watch ESPN anymore. So you're not like trying to increase the vaccination rate like normally. You're trying to coerce people, threaten them, hold them for ransom, essentially threaten them with losing their entire career and possibly house and like feeding their family. Like you guys are medical authoritarian psychopaths. That's probably better framing. But anyway, from the article, it says, although Congress has indisputably given OSHA the power to regulate occupational dangers, it has not given that agency the power to regulate public health more broadly, the court said in an unsigned opinion. Thank you, Supreme Court. I think the best take I read was from Gorsuch. I saw Greg Price on Twitter. He's some blue check mark conservative guy. He posted this little quote from Gorsuch, one of the Supreme Court nominees. I think this is really well said. He said, if Congress could hand off all its legislative powers to unelected agency officials, it would dash the whole scheme of our Constitution and enable intrusions into the private lives and freedoms of Americans by bare edict rather than only with the consent of their elected representatives. Basically, what he said there is like, if you can use these unelected agencies that nobody votes for to push policy that was unpopular, that you can't pass through the House or the Senate or pass through with how our government's supposed to work, that's an abuse of power. And, whether you're left wing or right wing, I know a lot of people won't admit this now, but everybody knows a tragedy and an emergency is two ways to pass legislation, get a lot of support, get a lot of fundraising, and, make political moves that you wouldn't normally be able to make. And I'm not saying that everything's pre-planned. I mean, I think obviously false flags is part of history. If you look through history, there's many examples of when it was proven that they did do things in order to pass things. This is not a theory. There's many false flags that are on record in history. Now, you're just not allowed to question that stuff, but there's like dozens of them that are documented in your history book. But anyway, whether it's real or not, most of the time it is, but a tragedy and an emergency can be used by both parties. For instance, when there's gun control legislation is not popular now because they're locking things down and people are getting scared. So I read recently that gun control has like its lowest approval rating ever. You know why? Because our government and private industry class, with the big business, big tech, everything, they went full-blown psychopath where people are starting to feel like they're living in a zombie apocalypse movie. So they're like, yeah, maybe I should own a gun. Maybe it would be a good. So because of this emergency and tragedy, you have actually probably Republicans have gained more support on gun control. When you have a school shooting or you have a shooting, or a tragedy or some sort of like mass event like Las Vegas, that's horrible and evil, now more people are scared and they're like, well, maybe we should kind of restrict sort of stuff. So this is stuff that could help both parties depending which way it goes. And that's just how it works. When Afghanistan happened and Biden, had a little Afghanistan blunder, he went way down in the polls. Trump started speaking about it and gaining more popularity out of office. This is just how politics works. It works for both parties. So long story short, yes, when there's an emergency pandemic and stuff, they are going to exploit it and push too far sometimes. They are going to use it to gain more power, gain more resources. When the George Floyd riots happened, you had hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through Act Blue to progressive liberal causes. This was a cash cow for them. I'm not saying it was fake. I mean, clearly people saw the video, but the point I'm saying is people do exploit tragedies and emergencies for their own political benefits. So, of course, like Gorsuch said, if you could use OSHA or you could use the NIH or the CDC to overrule, basically, over push through what would normally be passed through Congress, House, and Senate, that's something to consider. And I think they got that one right. However, I do think it's pretty messed up that they're not extending it to people. I mean, how many nurses now, how many hospitals are not going to be able to be protected under this? And before we listen to Biden, I just want to say this. Thank you, Supreme Court, for standing up against the OSHA mandates. shame on you, in my opinion, for not protecting workers in nursing homes, hospitals, and other facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid. I don't understand that. It's like you're holding them for ransom because they take government money. Um, I'm as grateful as I am that we have a Supreme Court. I'm just wondering how useful they really are. Clearly, they help a little bit, so I'm not mad at them. And I'm glad that Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh made this decision, because I wasn't sure that they were. God bless them. And thank you to President Trump for beating Hillary to allow this to happen. If Hillary would have won, we would have never had this. So to people who think elections don't matter, I would say maybe not as much as we'd hope, but they do actually impact federal judges, local judges, Supreme Court judges. That stuff really does matter. So I am grateful that Trump won in 2016 for that reason. But overall, it's like we got locked down and treated like slaves, peasants, serfs, and animals, and they wiped out hundreds of thousands of mom and pop shops. Where was the Supreme Court in 2020? It took them like a couple months, and they ruled against for religious rights. They came through and said, oh, you can keep your church open, which is awesome, or mosque or synagogue, whatever. That's great. But what about business? Why did they come in 3 months late, make a decision just for churches, mosques, and synagogues, but they left all these mom and pop shops and businesses to dry? Just like now, they wait a year. Millions of people who have already been forced vaccinated against their will, millions of people have been abused, and millions of people have been, coerced and held for ransom. And they come through and say, yeah, we're with this, but not with this. It's like, in my opinion, that's a half-ass approach. I don't understand how long it's supposed to take for Supreme Court stuff, but clearly it doesn't work that well as like a last second, emergency help for our constitutional country, because we got locked down like literal peasants for 3 months as big pharma made a killing, government got more power and control than they ever have, didn't have to miss a paycheck, while millions of workers miss paychecks. And they didn't do anything. They only ruled on like one small thing and then left the whole country out to dry. So it's like, in my opinion, get your act together, Supreme Court, because if you can't stop a lockdown, which is essentially just like imprisoning a non criminal, law-abiding citizen against their will, it's really like a form of modern-day slavery. You are confining somebody to their house, not allowing them to work out, psychologically abusing them, mentally abusing them, taking away physical resources. This is like imprisonment of the innocent, which would also be known as slavery by most dictionary textbooks. And you guys can't even rule on this stuff, and then you come in with this half-assed OSHA pushback. Well, we'll push back against this, but not this. Of course you will. And this is why the Democrats and the liberals and the, whatever you want to say, authoritarians, whatever you want to call them, this is why these people win, because they take 20 steps towards hell and the Republicans take 10 steps back towards earth or heaven. This is they push 20 yards, then we walk back 5 yards. They push 20 yards, we walk back 5 yards. That's why if you're like my friend Bryson Gray, who I did the song with, he takes a hardline stance against gay marriage, and people act like he can't be a Republican anymore because he feels that way. But the crazy part is Hillary Clinton felt that way in the early 2000s. Barack Obama felt that way in the early 2000s. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to have the same views as him. You don't have to be a Christian, but if you're not even allowing on the conservative Christian Republican side, you're not even allowing a conservative to have the same view that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton used to have as a liberal in 2000, that just shows how useless Republicans are. They don't conserve anything, not spiritually, constitutionally, religiously, politically, financially, fiscally, economically. If you take every category of conservatism, what they do is they let the Democrats march 15 yards, and then they walk back 5 yards. And that's kind of what the Supreme Court's doing, in my opinion. They have now allowed this new normal where they've pushed back against part of it and allowed a lot of it to stay for federal workers and people on Medicare and Medicaid. And I think it's disgusting. And at a certain point, either we're going to walk towards the country collapsing in this way, or we're going to get some conservatives with cojones who really identify this and say, hey, what if instead of marching back 5 yards after we lose 15 yards, what if we just stand still? What if we just not pander, not cave, do what's right, and try to make it popular? I think that's the future of this movement, because it's like I still think this is wrong. And there's liberals on Twitter like, we need to hit the streets now. This is so bad. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm like, you guys do everything except for hitting the gym. And I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but it's like these people are like, you're so unhealthy. You Joe Rogan. And it's like, dude, do you guys work out, exercise, or anything? Like, you think just like injecting yourself with Trumpy pumpy Fauci ouchies is going to turn you into like Hulk Hogan or something? There's a full circle of health, part of it is medicine, but a lot of it is diet and exercise. So it's like these people are so mad at everything. It's like they do everything except for hit the gym. But I support their peaceful protests in the streets because at least they're marching. That's a form of exercise and cardio. So I support the liberal protest. But I would say you're on the wrong side of history. You're trying to force people to do things against their will. You guys are like full-blown authoritarian psychopaths. It's very creepy. On that note, let's listen to Slow Biden talk about stuff and we'll react to it. All right, here's President Slosif Biden. His full name is Joseph Slosif Biden, aka Slow Biden. You have to respect the president, even if you don't like him. You're supposed to really respect him. So here's Slosif Biden, President Slosif Biden, talking about what he thinks about people who disagree with his authoritarianism.
And we're standing in the way. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, do it. Personal choice impacts us all, our hospitals, our countries. I make a special appeal to social media companies and media outlets. Please deal with the misinformation and disinformation that's on your shows. It has to stop. COVID-19 is one of the most formidable enemies America has ever faced. We've got to work together, not against each other.
So I don't think he's the best representative for health when he's slurring like somebody who had 15 shots of Jack Daniels. He's like, sucks, you gotta get vaccinated. Sucks, you gotta get healthy, bro. I mean, the misinformation. It's like, is he really the best example of health? I know 90-year-olds who speak better than him, 10 years old. Like, the dude sounds like he's slurring he sounds like he went out to a hole in the wall bar with Nancy Pelosi to get lit. Like, he doesn't even sound like he has control over his own mind. And he's out here telling people what to think. But they're trying to make this push because Joe Rogan's getting like so popular and nobody listens to them anymore. They're trying to frame it as, social media needs to do more to get rid of misinformation. What he really means by that is, we have authoritarian policy, Joe Biden, force mandates, force masking. They're forcing children, or they're trying to force people to take injections, people. Usually you get the flu shot every year. And I'm not comparing this to the flu shot because it's different, but like, people get the flu shot every year. I know people who get the flu shot every year. They get the flu shot every year because they get the flu shot and then they don't get the flu. They've had a positive experience. If they got the flu shot every year and got the flu every year, they'd probably stop getting the flu shot. That's just kind of how the human mind works. So you got people who got 3 injections this year, 3 mRNA pumpies, and they're still sick. So you're trying to force it on them. And most people in a free market, a lot of people would keep going. But a lot of people would be like, you know what, I'm going to chill here and just kind of stand on the sidelines and see what. So in his opinion, misinformation is anybody that disagrees with vaccine mandates, which is a majority of the country, folks. A majority of people who got vaccinated do not believe that everybody should get vaccinated. I know in my own family, I got 4 people who got the vaccine. 0 of them think everybody should get it, and a lot of them are very pro pharma, pro medical, like basic stuff. I don't know anybody. And I know they exist on like Huffington Post, like bloggers, like I'm an opinion journalist from New York Times. Yeah, they exist in San Francisco. They sit in their apartments. They can't go outside because people are shitting on the streets and stabbing each other with heroin needles. Their whole city's falling apart. They're wearing masks everywhere. It looks like they're in a Black Mirror, like hell communist Chinese episode that they're just like mentally stuck in. And they're writing opinion pieces about how they think everybody should live in misery like them. Really what the headlines should say is, misery loves company. I'm miserable. You should be miserable too. I would respect them if they said that. That's honesty. That's integrity in journalism. I'm miserable. I'm miserable in San Francisco. Misery loves company. Will you join me in my misery? That would be a more honest headline. But in real life, most people are against mandates. Most people want to get back to normal. A lot of people are like, okay, I don't think there should be forced masking at grocery stores all the time. So his idea of misinformation is not somebody just making up like a theory like, oh my God, there's a microchip in my brain planted there by a, 5G bird or something. Like, these are theories that he's not talking about. He's talking about people like Joe Rogan who talk about alternate treatments that he doesn't want to talk about. He's talking about people like Ron DeSantis, who's talking about, government emergency use authorized antibodies that he doesn't want to talk about. He's talking about people like Rand Paul who talk about natural immunity that he doesn't want to. He's not talking about these crazy like bird conspiracy theories, which in a free market, you should be allowed to say. If you could sell people on your belief, you're not selling me, but whatever. this is misinformation to him. They want to shut down anybody that rejects their authoritarianism. They have gone more authoritarianism than Trump, Obama, Bush. I mean, the only thing comparable is the 2020 lockdowns. But, any president, Democrat or Republican of 10 years ago, no one's ever been this authoritarian. So now all of a sudden the First Amendment's a problem because anybody that gets in the way of his extreme overreach in power is a problem. That's what he really means. So, Slosif Biden, shame on you. Whatever. Let's listen to him stumble through some stuff. It's always fun listening to slow Biden stumble.
You can find the nearest testing sites for you by Googling COVID test near me. Google COVID test near me. And to help lead our federal testing program, I've tapped Dr. Tom, I hope I pronounced it, Inglesby. Correct? Is that right? For what 2 years?
Is that right? No, it's not right. It's not right, Joe. I think you slipped up just a little bit, but it's okay. Everybody makes mistake. That's relatable. What's interesting about that name, Tom Inglesby, Inglesby, it's okay. Everybody stutters a little bit. It's natural, but I mess up too. It's all good, Slosif. That name sparked a bell in my head. I was like, Thomas Inglesby. Where have I heard that name before? And I figured it out, and I'll share it with y'all. So I did a video in April of 2020. Like, Rand Paul got a lot of heat and a lot of love. It's very controversial when he argues with Fauci talking about gain of function research, and all this stuff. I actually reported on this in April of 2020. So I was like, and I'm not trying to brag all the time, but oh my God, I was so far ahead. Oh, I'm such a hipster. Oh, I liked the Beatles before you did. I feel like I start to sound like that. And then I start to hate myself. It's like, oh, I like the Beatles. You're like, oh, I liked them in 1969. You're like, oh, I liked them in 1968. You're like, you weren't even born then. I was like, yeah, but I was like in a different place listening. That's what hipsters do. They're just like, I was first. I listened to Animal Collective before you did. And they're like, whatever, dude. Can we just both go to the concert and shut up? But anyway, I did report on this in April of 2020 before a lot of people, because Newsweek did an article. Once again, I have to say this for the Facebook fact checkers and the YouTube fact checkers. I know they don't want to talk about this, or, they've changed the definition, or, it's so wrong. But I'm just quoting Newsweek. This is an article from Newsweek that Tom Inglesby was a part of, or at least they, referenced his name, which is the guy that Joe Biden just stuttered about. This article was called, in April 28th, Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with US dollars for risky coronavirus research. This is the Newsweek. This is like mainstream, like liberal leaning publication. Let's read about Thomas Inglesby in this post, who I believe is the person that he put in charge of the testing or something. So let's listen. It's very, very interesting. All right. So I got to find the part. Let me see. Where is it? Maybe I'll have to search for it because now I haven't found it. But in that article, all right, they got this little search feature. Let's see. Inglesby. Here it is. Okay, so this is straight out of the Newsweek article. It says, nevertheless, in 2014, under pressure from the Obama administration, the National Institute of Health instituted a moratorium of the work, suspending 21 studies. 3 years later, though, in December 2017, the NIH ended the moratorium, and the second phase of the NIAID project, which included gain-of-function research, began. The NIH established a framework for determining how the research would go forward. Scientists have to get approval from a panel of experts who would decide whether their risks were justified. Here comes the fun part. The reviews were indeed conducted, but in secret, for which the NIH had drawn criticism. In early 2019, after a reporter from the Science magazine discovered that the NIH had approved 2 influenza projects that used gain-of-function methods, scientists who opposed this kind of research excoriated the NIH, including Thomas Inglesby, in an editorial in the Washington Post. Listen to this. This is the Tom Inglesby who now apparently works for the Biden administration. He said, "We have some serious doubts on whether those experiments should be conducted at all," wrote Thomas Inglesby of Johns Hopkins University and Mark Lipsitch of Harvard. "With deliberation kept behind closed doors, none of us will have the opportunity to understand how the government arrived at these decisions or to judge the rigor and integrity of that process." So this was written in April of 2020. I reported on it in April of 2020. It's now January of 2022. They're screaming at Fauci. I'm sorry, they're screaming at Rand Paul for suggesting that Dr. Fauci might have done gain of function research. And meanwhile, the guy, let's listen to his name again real quick because I forget it. I would like to listen to Slow Biden kind of say it again. Let's listen.
Test near me.
Listen real quick.
And to help lead our federal testing program, I've tapped Dr. Tom, I hope I pronounced it, Inglesby, correct? Is that right?
Is that the same Tom Inglesby from the 2020 Newsweek article and the 2019 Science Magazine article in which he said that, he was upset with the NIH for keeping their process of how they approved these gain of function researches behind closed doors? And quoting Thomas Inglesby, none of us will have the opportunity to understand how the government arrived at these decisions or to judge the rigor or the integrity of this process. You can't make this stuff up, folks. I would love if somebody asked Tom Inglesby if he still feels the same way, because, Rand Paul is getting crushed by the mainstream media and crushed by Dr. Fauci for suggesting, a cautionary, issue with something that all these experts themselves had issues with in 2019. They wrote about it in Science Magazine and said all the same stuff that Rand Paul's saying now. And now they work for the Biden administration, got their lips zipped, and everybody's just allowing them to act like Rand Paul's this crazy conspiracy theorist. So I would love to know the answer. That, once again, I didn't say that. Science Magazine, Newsweek, mainstream stuff. If y'all got a problem with it in the fact checkers, talk to Tom Inglesby. He shouldn't be hard to find. He's next to stumbling Slosov Biden, I guess helping him with the testing. All right. Speaking of, very smart, aware politicians who totally deserve your respect and support, Kamala Harris, she answers a few questions about the testing. Some interesting stuff we'll hear.
Well, we're 2 years into this. Why didn't the administration just go out and secure more at-home tests after the Delta surge in the fall? Why are we at a point now where folks still can't get tests?
But we just ordered, I don't have the number in front of me, but millions of tests. We have 20,000 sites where people can go. And I urge people you can Google it or go on to any search engine and find out where free testing on the free testing site is available.
But Madam Vice President, the fact that we're still telling people to Google where you can get a test, and
but come on now. I mean, really, if you want to figure out how to get across town to some restaurant you heard is great, you usually do Google to figure out where it is. So that's simply about giving people, right, a mechanism by which they can locate something that they need, something that can.
So this is kind of going viral on Twitter. She's like, just Google it. I mean, offhand, I don't really have a problem with using search engines. I feel like people are overreacting, but I do want to say this, where he asked a proper question. Me personally, I don't take PCR tests. I don't shove them up my nose like a good boy. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in like shoving a PCR test up my nasal canal so they could cycle it, however many times and tell me something. But in general, like in their little twisted world, they're all about mass testing, which is honestly part of what's going on here. It's like everybody's testing. They're testing asymptomatic people at the hospital. Test. Yeah, you're finding it. You cycle enough. You find it. They're dead by COVID. That's part of the problem. But anyway, in their world, why didn't she have the tests available? And it's funny, her and Biden, they're always like, well, now we're getting them. It's like I remember Biden's last little I don't know if it was State of the Union, probably not, just like some sort of press conference. He was saying that no one could have saw it coming. Like the winter surge, he was like, no one could have fathomed it coming. It's like, these people are literally such idiots, and they're so used to people, bowing down to them and just falling in line. These idiots are so used to people not being able to question them. Oh, don't misinformation is anybody who questions me. They're trying to gaslight people into thinking that a winter surge is shocking. When if you look at the chart from last year, there was a surge in winter. This year, there was a surge in winter. Yes, it was higher, but there is a winter surge, and I bet you next year there might be a winter surge. So if that happens 3 years in a row, it's not a mystery anymore. It's going to surge in winter, just like the flu did every year. Dummies, and like they don't even, we didn't even know. Who would have guessed in the winter that it would have came? It's like, really? And people really believe this stuff? They're like, yeah, I mean, the cases are going up. I got to hunker down. It's like, sure, but do you consider winter? And then they just change the subject. They're like, oh, this conspiracy theorist thinks that, respiratory illnesses get bad in the winter. I mean, it's like, what? Like it's so crazy. Like, whatever. Let's
At what point does the administration say,
Here's another one.
This strategy isn't working? We're going to change strategies. 6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
No.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
What's gonna slow this thing down, folks? I'm gonna just make a prediction here, okay? Spring, the beginning of spring, the end of winter, okay? They're gonna run in circles like psychopaths around NK95 masks or whatever they're called and testing, and they're gonna run circles and they're gonna freak out about mandates, and then winter's gonna end and spring's gonna start and the numbers are gonna go back down, and then they're gonna gaslight you into thinking that it was something other than the seasonal changes that happened last year as well. Good luck with that. Oh, let's roll the vaccine out in May. Oh my God, it's working really well for 2 months in June and July. I mean, there's no seasonal, let's not put that into the equation. Sure, I guess if people believe that, and even Republicans say too, even Rand Paul's like, oh man, it worked great for 2 months. I'm sure it did, but also why not roll it out in November and December? See how well the data looks if you roll the vaccine out in November and then the December spike. Are you going to have the same results as if you roll it out in June? And Rand Paul buys into this stuff too. It's like, and he's one of my favorite Republicans. It's like these people, like, I don't know. I think it has something to do. I'm not saying Rand Paul because I think he's a nice guy, but like, I think it has something to do with like too much power and control. Like if I have too much power and control over your life, you start gaslighting yourself into like not even thinking about basic common sense stuff. Like you think your crap doesn't stink. And then you're just like, you actually start believing yourself. You're like, I've been studying the data and the efficacy. I mean, I know I'm a scientist. I went to doctor school. It's like, but did you include seasonal change? Why not roll the booster out in December and let's see how well the efficacy works then? Let's see the numbers. You don't want to roll it out in December, do you? Like the flu shot or in October, November. Oh yeah, you guys want to roll it out in like March, April, May, June, right around summer. That's when you guys want to roll it out. Why not take my challenge and roll it out before our big spike next year? But anyway, I wanted to show people this because I showed yesterday a clip of Trump, taking veiled shots at Republicans who don't brag about their booster publicly and keep it private. I had no idea that this was the question he was answering, which in a weird way, I think kind of makes it worse because this guy from One American News Network, I don't know who this guy is, but, give a lot of respect to this guy. Someone finally asked Donald Trump the question about the VAERS reporting. And once again, the VAERS reporting, it's a government database that was created when the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed, which was this liability shield given to some vaccines that protected Big Pharma, the vaccine manufacturers, from liability. They used to have liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. Once the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed under Reagan, a lot of vaccine manufacturers for certain products, they no longer had liability, financial liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. They created a little compensation fund with the government, and then they did something called VAERS reporting. So VAERS reporting is not a conspiracy theory. VAERS reporting is the government database that was created to track the side effects and injuries from vaccines once they took a lot of liability away from the manufacturers. So a lot of people say VAERS numbers are not accurate. A lot of people that are skeptical will say they're way underreported. People in the media, of course, are saying that they're overreported. So it's something to consider whether you think it's over or underreported. Obviously, I have my opinions, but listen to the question. I didn't even realize this was the question. What a good question. And once again, what a garbage answer from Trump. But listen to the question. Great question. Good job, One American News Network. Way to not just lick his boots and actually do like a real question because it's a great question.
To in a second, but the other one was the vaccine. Right. You recently stated in an interview with Candace Owens and when you were on the road with Bill O'Reilly doing the book tour and the speaking engagement that you've had the vaccine, 2 shots, and you've had the booster. Right. And you recommend it for folks. We have seen with the VAERS report, there's tens of thousands of side effects, more side effects in this vaccine, any vaccine history, and more deaths. Dr. Robert Malone, 9 patents for the mRNA technology being used in the vaccines. He came on my program a couple weeks ago and said, unless you're over 65 and have a comorbidity, I recommend it. Other than that, I don't recommend taking it. He even is upset he took it himself. He's having heart issues.
Looking back, we know that Warp Speed was great. You did amazing with getting rid of red tape to get something out there. But after now so many months of the vaccine being administered and these side effects and Americans' questions of it, do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it because they're gutless.
So I had no idea. I'm going to play the rest of the clip. I had no idea that was the question. What a great question. I thought he just went off about the booster. Like, this is the weirdo, like, flipping Trump does. It's like, they're like, they're talking about Bears reporting Dr. Robert Malone, and he then uses that as an opportunity to almost completely dodge the question and take a shot at other Republicans for not bragging about the booster. Listen, I feel in very many ways vindicated because I'm watching a lot of people, including like, I think Jesse Kelly mentioned something the other day on his Twitter. They're like, talk to the Secret Service and make sure they didn't replace this guy with a pharmacy representative. He made a joke like that, which was funny. Kyle Becker, who's like a Fox News guy, he was arguing with me about Trump a year and a half ago, getting all mad at me and stuff. I said I would debate him publicly. He declined, of course. But anyway, now I'm starting to see them say, oh, dude, Trump's got to stop shilling the vaccine. It's a little too much. He's dodging questions. It's getting a little annoying. Like a lot of these people that were giving me crap, and not Jesse Kelly, but I'm just saying were giving me crap a year ago for similar stuff. Now they're echoing what I'm saying. And I wasn't trying to be mean or rude. It's just like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we have such a great movement going. Like it deserves a leader that understands how we feel, not like a vaccine representative. It's one thing to take credit for it and move on. But if it's going to be like a 30-year campaign to, convince people that Operation Warp Speed was like as great as the moon landing, it's cringe. I was just early on saying it and people were earlier than me, but let's listen to it.
Say it, whether you had it or not, say it. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. I've had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special. I've had it.
Do you feel for the millions of Americans that have it, though? There's over 100 million that haven't taken it yet. And they have questions, especially younger people with myocarditis and things.
I don't think young, healthy people should take it. Okay. I don't think that certainly these young kids, their immune system is so strong. I look at I have a son, Barron, who's 15. He had it. It lasted for about 2 seconds. Yeah. Okay. I said, oh, we've got it. Barron, you've got it. And like by the time we called the doctor, it was gone. They have a very strong immune system.
So that was the full context. I just wanted to play that. I mean, I respect him at the end. I guess, in order to get him to say that, you really have to push on it. So, that's my thoughts. I'm going to play this clip real quick of Rand Paul because somebody was arguing with me in the comments. I saw it. I just want to prove what I was saying. But, I think iron sharpens iron. And I think the Republicans are used to getting knocked back 15 steps and taking 5 steps forward. Knocked back 15 steps, taking 5 steps forward. Even in a Trump administration, Trump was the strongest president I'd ever seen. He took 5 steps forward, and really we got knocked back 15 steps with all this, vaccine mandates. And so even with Trump there, we're always going in the wrong direction. So people could hate me for it. People could lie about it. People could take personal attacks at me. That's fine. I feel good with what I'm saying because I believe what I'm saying. I know it's right, and I stand firm in my beliefs. I'm not doing it for any nefarious reasons. It's because I'm tired of losing even when we win. And I think in order to win when we win, it includes standing up for ourselves, having our own opinions, having our own identity, and being able to properly, call out people we love in politics. Because at the end of the day, I'm not taking personal attacks at these people. They're representatives, they're running for office. They were the president. They're passing laws, executive orders. They're doing these big scale things, socialism, funding $18 billion to Big Pharma with our taxpayer money. If they're going to take money from me every year and fund Big Pharma $18 billion and brag about it, the least I could do is stand up for myself and say, I paid tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. You spent $18 billion giving Big Pharma money. I didn't want to give them a single dime. I don't think they deserve a single dime of taxpayer money. They have enough money, enough power. They do enough lobbying of politicians. The last thing Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson needs is government subsidies and funding, in my opinion. And it doesn't, you can't convince me differently. Not with Obama, not with Trump, not with Biden, not with DeSantis. That's how I feel. people get so mad at it because people don't have their own identity. They don't have their own soul. It's like they're professional cheerleaders and sports fans, and they just get so mad that I made fun of the Oakland Raiders, their favorite team. It's like, listen, this is how I really feel. I don't think Big Pharma should get a single dime of taxpayer money, and you can't fool me into supporting it with Donald Trump or a character that I like. It's just not going to happen with me, folks. On that note, I saw a comment. I just want to play this clip of Rand Paul because someone said that's not what Rand Paul said. I'll play the full context clip of what I'm talking about with Rand Paul. And keep in mind, I do want to say this. Even with this, statement that Rand Paul made, I understand we disagree. I still like Rand Paul better than most Republicans. I would still vote for Rand Paul in the primaries over Trump. I think he's a better option. Personally, I would support him over Trump at this given moment. But he did say something that I disagree with about Operation Warp Speed stuff. And I just want to play it, or a new vaccine. Here's the clip of Rand Paul. Let me play it and let me explain myself. And then you could agree with him, not me. It's fine. But I do want to tell you what I was talking about. Listen.
You can get a drink at a bar. None of this affected the trajectory of the virus. The virus has moved. The numbers of viral infections per day have moved regardless of what man has tried to do. Other than the vaccine was working pretty well in May of April, but now the vaccine isn't working so well and the virus is escaping it. So the one thing they could do, they're not doing, and that is we should allow for a new vaccine to be introduced. They have it waiting, but they're not doing anything to introduce the new vaccine.
So he's saying, the vaccine worked really well in April and May, and we need a new vaccine. There's new vaccines, and they just need to approve them. What I was talking about is I'm just trying to challenge Dr. Rand Paul and all these other people. If you think the vaccine rollout went so well in May and April, what I was saying is compare May and April of 2021 to May and April of 2020, and also understand that May and April are, I would say historically 2 months where, whether it be a respiratory illness, a coronavirus, influenza, historically, that's when it kind of dips anyway because of seasonal changes. So my challenge to Rand Paul is, instead of saying we need a new vaccine because this one worked so well for 2 months in May and April, roll out the booster shot or roll out your favorite new vaccine, whichever one Rand Paul likes, roll it out in November and October for multiple reasons. One, I would love to see if the numbers dip and you guys find the same efficacy. Or two, I believe, based on the data of coronavirus data in America, winter is when the spikes come. So rolling out a vaccine in April and May and taking credit for it is pretty cowardly, in my opinion, considering seasonal trends. Roll it out in November and December. Prove me wrong. Roll it out in November and cut the spike the same exact way. Like, this is what's really bothering me about all of these people, including people on the right now, because they're so gung-ho about this product. I'm not saying anything besides you guys are ignoring seasonal trends. Biden's ignoring winter. Kamala's ignoring spring. Rand Paul's ignoring summer. Trump's ignoring everything. It's like, is there no seasonal changes? Like, this is peak government corruption where they feel like they want to take credit for your lives. Fauci wants this. Trump wants credit for Operation Warp Speed and the original lockdowns. Biden wants the mandate. It's like these people need to just leave us the hell alone, including Rand Paul. It's like they want this little game they're playing, and they act like there's nothing else in the equation. Rand Paul's one of the better guys for sure, but it's like, we did it in April. We helped you for 2 months. Dude, just leave me alone. Let me go to the gym. Let me go get exercise. Let me go to the beach. Let me work out. Let me take care of myself. Let other people do the same. And it's not like virology goes like this. It's not a flat line. It's never been a flat line. So there are always trends. Every year it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Usually in the winter it goes up and down in the spring and summer. That's how it's always been. That's how it's going with coronavirus too. You have some of the biggest spikes this year and last year in the winter, okay? And then sometimes there's a spike there. And then sometimes the next winter's like that. And then there's a winter like that. The point I'm saying is there has been no ever anything, coronavirus, influenza, any sort of thing that just went like this. It's not the same all the time. You don't have the exact same trends all the time. You have little trends like, oh yeah, it's going to peak in the winter, but it might be even with influenza. This year, it's 2 times as bad. That was always a natural pattern in history. So they want to micromanage everything and act like every little trend is them. Oh, we locked you in your house for 6 months and it didn't work, but then the summer hit and then the vaccine rolled out and it worked. And now, we could have never predicted the Omicron in the winter. And now, it's starting to go down again because the fourth mask. What about spring? What about summer? What about obesity in this country and other trends of people being ill? What about the correlation between, people with comorbidities, according to Rochelle Walensky's, million person vaccinated study, where 75% of the people who died had, 4 or more comorbidities. These things play into the equation too. And I'm tired of politicians on the left, mostly in, health experts mostly, but also on the right, trying to gaslight us into thinking that human nature or immune systems or basic seasonal trends are not even a part of the equation. And, it's just annoying because it comes from people that are like pseudo intellectuals. They think they're smarter than they are. That's why when you look at all of these virologists and epidemiologists, I have yet to see one that looks like they're in shape. Either they're overweight or they're frail as a thumbnail. Like, they look frail. It looks like they've never done a push-up in their life. It's like, do you know the science between momentum and velocity and, weight? Like, there's real human physical science, but behind being healthy, having your muscles in your back support the ones here and working. Like, none of them look like they're healthy. I follow 50 people on Twitter that are 20 times as healthy as any of these people, because they sit in a lab, they look at data, and they think that they're God. They play God. Well, I'm going to do gain of function research and then lie about it. Well, I'm going to do this. Well, I'm going to do that. And, I think that if we roll it out in summer, that, this proves that it had 2 months of efficacy and 6 months of efficacy. Yeah, roll it out in November, roll it out in September, and then tell me if it has 6 months of efficacy. I bet you that your data is going to be a lot different if you roll this vaccine out in November than if you roll it out in April and May. But Rand Paul doesn't seem to think that, and I don't think he's a bad person. I just think sometimes these smart people with doctor degrees, get caught up in their own intelligence and just forget basic common sense stuff. And, this is just what I do on this channel. I call it like I see it. I don't care if it's Trump, Rand Paul, Fauci, whoever. And some people think that, oh my God, you're dead. No, I still vote Republican. I'm still going to vote Republican in the primaries. And I would vote for Rand Paul 20 times before I voted for Trump. That's just my personal belief. And people are starting to hate on me now. And they're, oh my God, it's either Trump or Hillary. And it's like, we have a primary, okay? Trump is there. Trump was there. He might be there again. I might be forced to vote for him in the regular election if he becomes the president. But in general, it's like, the dude's almost 80 years old. At a certain point, you're going to have to get your own identity. You can't cling on to Ronald Reagan for 50 years or George Bush Sr. Eventually the world moves on. Every football team that I've ever loved, I love the Giants. Eli Manning was quarterback. Eventually someone else comes in when he doesn't do the job. Trump, to me, is not fit to do the job right now. He's a vaccine salesman. I don't want him there. I don't have to. It doesn't make me a Democrat. It means I would rather Ron DeSantis. Just like 75% of Trump supporters. Everybody likes Ron DeSantis better. I'm the only one who is open with it, or at least like early and open with it. A lot of people are now, but I'd prefer Rand Paul to Donald Trump. And if you want to be honest, although I like Trump when he's on fire more than Ted Cruz, the reason I would even prefer Ted Cruz over Donald Trump is because Ted Cruz doesn't have this personality of cult behind him or cult-like, allegiance. So when Ted Cruz does something wrong, everybody's on him. And then Ted Cruz reverses it in 2 days and goes in front of the Senate and does something the exact opposite, because everybody uses their American power to be like, hey, Ted Cruz, that was whack. And they push forward. That's, in my opinion, healthy. A politician who people like a little bit, but not so much that they're willing to create this alternate theory of like, oh my God, he's doing something in the metaverse. It's like, maybe he's not. Maybe he's, also just caught in politics like everybody else, and we need to do our job. So, that's my personal prerogative. I would vote for DeSantis, Rand Paul, and even possibly other people over Trump in the primary. And then if Trump wins and it's Trump and Biden, I'll vote for Trump. Why? Because I'm not a baby. I understand federal judges matter. Even though I think Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett dropped the ball in some cases, clearly they're better than Sotomayor and these others. So I would still vote for Trump, even though I made fun of him for 3 years, because I get it. He would provide more benefit than Biden, even if it's slightly, even if it's a little bit economically. But then I'm still not going to shut up. It's like, I'm not going to just bow down on my knees. It's like, now we really have more job to do. Now we need to make sure our party doesn't flop in the wind like they did in 2020. That's just how I see it. A lot of people do as well. So some people get it, some people don't, but I like to explain myself, show clips, etc. And that's what it is. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Hopefully some people here were positively impacted by the OSHA mandates. I feel bad for people that are still requiring it over, nursing homes, hospitals, and facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid. I don't think that's fair. And this is the trick of the government, folks. Like, when right wingers talk about welfare, I get what they're saying now. When I was younger, I was like, oh, that's so mean. I totally get it now. If you don't make your own living, create your own business and private stuff, you're going to be on something government. They're going to own a piece of you. If they own a piece of you, they start to micromanage your life. Oh, yeah, you can get this money, but in order to get this money, you need to take this shot. In order to get this money, you have to do this. So the more the government controls in your life, regardless of your ethnicity, the more they can make you do things that you don't want to do. So as the government expands, they act like they're helping you. Oh, don't worry. You don't have to work there. We'll give you $1,200. Oh, no, you don't have to work for that mom and pop shop. We're going to run them out of business. Oh, yeah, the minimum wage is so bad. Let's raise it so 1 million businesses go out of business, but Walmart, McDonald's, and Amazon can afford to pay their employees more. They have all these sneaky tricks to push away private property. And if you look at BlackRock and Vanguard and where the country's going and these op-eds that they're writing, eventually, I believe they're pushing for complete ownership of all property. Right now, in America, the Constitution is great, which includes the Bill of Rights, fantastic. Any sort of privacy between you and the government is very important, because the more they own, you can't escape. The more control they have federally and statewide, you can't get out of it. And these major companies that work hand in hand with the government, they're on a quest to make everybody a renter. If you don't own your own property, maybe you have to swipe a QR code just to get into your own building. This is the reality. If you say you live at or you go stay at a Ramada Inn or a Marriott, Marriott is a big corporate conglomerate. And in order to stay at a Marriott, a lot of them are enforcing mask mandates. So the more property a lot of these big businesses own, the less rights you're going to have. So owning something, keeping your privacy and allowing smaller businesses and more, I would say, moral businesses to keep their power and not get shut down. 2020 was the biggest dupe ever, and Trump was in the office. Democrats did it. Republicans did it for a little bit. Some people got fooled. Some people got tricked. When it's all said and done, I'm forgiving of people, but in general, they destroyed over 100,000 restaurants. Okay. Now, when I go to eat, where do I go? Well, I could go to Whole Foods, who can enforce a policy. Well, I could go to, these major corporations. A lot of these mom and pop shops were wiped out. So now you can only go to a few places, and those few places can put the same policy as the Biden administration. So really what they did is use this whole tragedy and pandemic to, drive out more and more competition to big government and big corporation. And big tech used it as an excuse to squash a lot of their competition, including the former president of the United States, who was using their platforms to, in many ways, rail against some of their agendas. So, keep your eyes peeled, and, hopefully people don't get tricked like this again. Hopefully more and more people are waking up. I think they are. This was a huge win today, even though, once again, tiny win in comparison to what it could have been. It's definitely better than, what's going on in Canada and Australia. So I'm grateful, but my work is not done and our work is not done. So I'll answer a few questions and then I'm going to take off before an hour probably. Thank you. God bless you, London. Appreciate y'all. Let me try to read some star chats real quick on Facebook. Emmanuel, thank you. Rodney, thank you. Jesse, thank you. Yolanda, thank you. Patrick, thank you. Joseph, thank you. Chris said, how many of these people? I don't know. Elena, thank you. Lisa, thank you. Stephen, Michael, thank you. Marty, thank you. Appreciate y'all. I just want to let y'all know, too, tomorrow the Billboard charts come out. That's what we've been pushing for. Thank you for your support. I know I've been kind of annoying this week, but Bryson got an email from Billboard, so we're definitely on one of the charts. I think we're going to be on a few. We definitely had good numbers. We're falling a little bit today, but we had 6 days of very powerful numbers. Number 2 on the hip hop charts on iTunes, number 1 bestseller on Amazon. We're still the number 1 bestseller. So I think we're going to hit 4 or 5 Billboard charts, which is exciting. Thank you guys for your support. And I'll find out tomorrow. I'll post, let y'all know what happened. But we're competing with major label artists, people with millions of dollars, people with major businesses behind them. A lot of these businesses are very similar to, the big tech type stuff where it's they're the culture wing of the big tech. Let's tell the kids to do this. Let's talk about this. Let's tell all the kids to get injected and it's cool to pop pills. It's they don't care. This is how sick some of these industries are. Not to go on a side rant, but one of the biggest killers, if not the biggest killer of like teenagers and 20-year-olds, it's fentanyl now. Fentanyl. That's why I made a line in the song. I said, big pharma must be lobbying rappers. They be telling you to get injections, partying after. The kids are dying from the fentanyl while popping the Xanax. And I don't want our friends to die, but that be part of this chapter. That's part of my lyrics because kids are dying of fentanyl. And these record labels are recklessly promoting rappers that are talking about popping pills. Let's pop pills, pop Xanax. How do you think these kids are dying from fentanyl? It's from street drugs. They're getting these drugs that they're hearing about in rap songs. They think they're cool because all these rappers are talking about how cool they are. And the kids are dying, from fentanyl. Like Mac Miller died. The pitcher from the Angels died. There's too many people getting killed by fentanyl, which is coming from, in many ways, communist China, coming across the border in Mexico. They say border security is racist. It's xenophobic to talk about China. Meanwhile, there's this fentanyl death complex killing our young people. And the music industry is in many ways responsible because they have artists that are telling these teenage kids and 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds that it's cool to pop pills, and nobody's talking about kids dying of fentanyl. That's why I talked about it in my song. So, it's bigger than just me and Bryson as well. We're trying to change the culture. We're trying to push back. And we're trying to show people that it's cool to not be a kid killer, basically killing kids with your lyrics. So thank you guys. I think we're going to hit 5 charts and the work has just begun. It's early 2022, January, and off to a good start on that note. Thank you guys. Probably ended on that note. Real quick, there's 2 ways to follow me. T.me/DreamRareChat, Telegram, DreamRareChat. I post all my videos there. If you want a heads up for my live stream, I have stayintouchwithme.com, which is my free email list. I barely use it unless I need to. Stayintouchwithme.com. And I'm hopefully going to finish my book by February. I would like to have it out in February. It's getting very close. I just have to edit it and stuff, figure out how to post it and get it printed and stuff. This is like the end of it, but the context of it is written, the contents of it's written, and the book is going to be about, I've told people a few times, but I'm trying to detangle the manipulation of language going on in our country, because it happens on the right wing a lot, but really a lot of it is left wing and institutional, like leftism. But it is in my book, I don't really left, right. I'm trying to be honest. And like, there's a lot of right wingers that do this too, but they manipulate language, right? Racist, sexist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic, they have a way to use these words to take away our Constitution. Hate speech. You now have Getter saying, well, John Miller did hate speech. That's why we took him down. He said the N-word. It's a hate speech. First of all, he's black. So you could say that on Twitter. Literally, Getter censors more than Twitter. You have more constitutional freedom on Twitter than Getter. But in general, the word hate, there is no such thing as hate speech. What does that mean? You might hate the truth. Joe Biden hates people against authoritarianism. Donald Trump hates people who don't talk about his crowd sizes. Like, I don't like certain things. Like, what is hate? Hate speech is subjective. A lot of people just hate border security or talking about, H-1B visas. Like, so the word hate speech itself is a term created, not an original term that ever existed, for people to shut down free speech. So you can't use the word hate speech as a right winger and protect free speech. Getter does not understand that, Ebony Bowden, but she shamelessly just argues with everyone on Twitter, even though she's fraudulently wrong. It's unconstitutional instinct. So that's what my book's about. To give you another example, I don't know that this is in my book, but maybe I'll add it in there. Now they're talking about voting rights. The left is genius at manipulating language. Oh, we're doing voting rights. They're not doing voting rights. They're trying to stop people from having identification. You need a vaccine identification to enter a grocery store. You need an identification to go on a cruise. You need an identification to fly. Anything. You need an identification to buy lottery tickets or buy alcohol. But it's voting rights to take away your identification for one of the most sacred things in this country, which is our ability to vote out a dictator and vote in somebody that's more democratic. And they're manipulating it with the word voting rights. So how the left really wins is they make these fake terms and fake words and change the perception of reality through the manipulation of language. And then the right adapts 50% of what they're saying. You're a racist. Oh, no, you're a homophobe. Oh, no, you're an anti-Semite. Oh, no, that's hate speech. That's hate. I'm free speech, but that's hate speech. It's like these words don't even mean anything. They're not even original dictionary words that they, at a certain point, created, expanded, and made so large that their only function at this point is to shut down a discussion, shut down a debate, and most importantly, shut down your First Amendment right to be critical of religion, of race, of government, of me, of anything. This is what the Constitution was for. It was to protect people from having unpopular opinions that, you know, could be thrown out to then be argued against. And by the way, that's science as well. Science is not, we have this thought, everybody agrees, and nobody can question me. That's not how science works. That's not how math works. That's not how, you know, Einstein's equation works. It's not, he said, everybody question it. You know, at a certain point, if you could prove it wrong, then it's wrong. Like, some things last for 50 years and someone's like, oh, wait, they figure it out. Science is not shut up, you know, shut your mouth, shut down Joe Rogan's podcast, and this is the science. That's authoritarianism. Science is the exact opposite, and so is the First Amendment. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Appreciate everybody supporting the song as well, and I'll be back tomorrow. I'll let y'all know the results of that, and thank you for another great live stream. Appreciate y'all so much.